So, most of us thought that the Ahsoka Show was going to save Star Wars. It's written by Dave Filoni, it has all of his characters that we all know and love, from the Clone Wars and Rebels. He is the apprentice of George Lucas and learned firsthand what Star Wars really is, from the story to the themes to the feeling it gives you. He, of all people at Lucasfilm, know exactly how Star Wars works and what goes into making great Star Wars. So all of us thought that if Star Wars could ever be revived, Dave Filoni would be the one to do it, and so we were eagerly waiting for this show to release. So, getting into it, how was the show? Well, after breaking the show down and thinking about it deeply, which most fans are against doing, because if you think about Disney Star Wars shows too much, you're going to end up finding a lot of flaws that you don't want to have to accept yourself are there, and it's got to the point where most of the remaining fans of Star Wars just don't want to acknowledge any flaws in any show, even though there is huge flaws that are completely avoidable if the company actually decided to make these shows and movies with passion, if they decided to actually care about what they're making. Because getting into it, the Ahsoka Show is very underwhelming in every way, but it's no surprise. Disney is continuing to make mediocre shows, and it's obvious that once again, they have no care to improve their products, because the Ahsoka Show is no different to all the other mediocre, lazily made shows that have no substance. So without dragging this intro on, the Ahsoka Show unfortunately didn't even come close to saving Star Wars. The show isn't polished. The writing, the dialogue, the directing, and the acting was mediocre at best. Now yes, of course it felt more like Star Wars than any other show that we've gotten so far. It focused on the Force, the light side and the dark side. It was very mystical, but there was no substance. It was just things happening that didn't need to happen. Everything that happens in it is stupid and forced. There's many examples I can give, which I will in future videos, but I'll give one example. Why would Sabine sacrifice the whole galaxy to save Ezra, the guy that literally took Thrawn away from the galaxy to save it? Yet this whole show is leading up to her just completely destroying the ending of Rebels. What Ezra did was so heroic, and he sacrificed himself to save the galaxy, only for Sabine, 8 years later, to completely reverse it and bring Thrawn back to the galaxy with Ezra. So the only difference in the main galaxy now, after this whole season, is that it's missing Sabine and Ahsoka, because Thrawn's back, the Empire's back, and Ezra's back. Now this is only one flaw, but like I said, I'll get into many more in future videos, because this is really ridiculous. But anyways, getting back to the overview of the show, most of the characters were emotionless and talked to each other in empty one-liners, and for some reason in between these empty one-liners there were huge pauses that gave the audience enough time to walk off, make some food, go to the toilet, read a book, play the whole story of God of War, come back, and then maybe a character would have spat out another one-liner if you gave them enough time. It's just so clunky and boring. There's no need for these gaps. The show thinks that everything every character says is the most incredible thing ever. They have to make every character a stoic badass that has little words to say, even though in Rebels and the Clone Wars, every character was speaking a lot, they had a lot of emotion, and that's what made them shows so likable. That's what made the characters so likable. But in this new show, they're nothing like they used to be. Sabine is unlikable, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she came out to be a part of the villain side, because everything she does is selfish and puts the whole galaxy at risk. There is just so many dumb and illogical decisions, many stupid things happening that did not need to happen. Thrawn is as smart as a Gungan. He's not intelligent whatsoever. This is not what Thrawn is meant to be like. He came up with the most simple plans that any character could think of, and made decisions that weren't even the best decision that he could make in that situation. I mean, we're talking about Thrawn, the most intelligent person in the galaxy. This man does not need the Force to be incredibly threatening, and he's just all around a badass. But in this show, because unfortunately Dave Filoni cannot write a character this intelligent, because funny enough, you have to be as intelligent as the character you are writing, or else you cannot come up with intelligent enough concepts for the character, and unfortunately Dave Filoni just cannot do that. So what we got in the show was a not very smart Thrawn, who's not in shape like Thrawn is meant to be. And yes, he's meant to be like 60 years old or something at this time in the story. He's a character that doesn't allow himself to have any flaws. He stays in shape. He does combat training because he demands the utmost respect from everyone that exists. But in the Ahsoka Show, he's nothing like he's meant to be. He's not intelligent at all. In fact, he loses 5 times in the last episode alone, which is so laughable because every decision he makes fails, and we'll also get into that in another video. He's got the posture of a penguin, and honestly, they should have brought in Timothy Zahn to write every part of this show that Thrawn is in, because they only brought him in to let them know little details about what Thrawn is like as a character that they must include, such as Thrawn caring about his soldiers. Unlike every other leader in the Empire, he treats his soldiers with respect, as a great leader would do, which is a cool feature about Thrawn. But they brought him in to mention little things like that, so that he stays somewhat accurate to the original character that Timothy Zahn made, but it was nowhere close. He was the complete opposite to what he was meant to be, and he does not seem like a threat whatsoever, which will absolutely impact the success of the movie that Dave Filoni will be making. People already have given up on Star Wars, and this Ahsoka show was meant to be the one to bring people back, the last hope, but it absolutely failed to do that. Star Wars went from a beyond A-list franchise down to a C tier or below. It has random everyday shows having more watch time, which is just insane, and it's kind of sad that the remaining Disney Star Wars fans, including myself up until this Ahsoka show, were being kind of delusional and believing that Star Wars can come back and be its true self once more, but there's absolutely no way. But it's fell so far from grace, and Disney continue to bring out the most mediocre shows that have nothing special about them anymore. That's why people don't watch them. How much does Star Wars have to fall off for it to struggle to make the top 10 in viewership every week? It's crazy. But anyway, moving on, there was very little hype across all of social media for this last episode of Ahsoka. There was hardly any discussion, and you can't really blame people for not wanting to talk about it. There's just not that much point talking about a show that doesn't do anything special or crazy. The Ahsoka show, just like other Disney shows, keep things simple. They don't care about the show that they're making enough to make anything really cool and interesting happen. So when the remaining fans of Disney Star Wars discuss theories about the future of the show or the future of the story in general, all of the theories end up being better and more interesting than what they give us in the show, because time and time again they show the fans that they do not put that much creativity into their show, because the fact that a fan can come up with a theory in a few hours or a few minutes, that's better than what they do in the show or movie. Even though Disney has all the time to think about cool concepts to add to their shows, they just do not do it. And so fans end up very underwhelmed every time their theory is nothing close to what happens. And the issue for the fans isn't that their theory isn't in the show, it's that the concept that they came up for was so easy to come up with, yet the show gives us something so ridiculous and so obviously lazy that it's 10 times more underwhelming. Now, believe it or not, I believe that this show is the second best Disney Star Wars show that they've released, only bested by Mandalorian season 1 and 2, and that definitely says something. I know many fans think that this is the best show, but the fact that the best show is so mediocre and lazy and nothing compared to the original Star Wars movies and the prequels and basically anything George Lucas did, it's actually really sad that fans make themselves believe that this is Star Wars, that Star Wars is back. We're back to getting George Lucas level Star Wars, which honestly is insulting to George Lucas. And bear in mind, I was like this before the Ahsoka show came out, so that's not even long ago, but I can't just keep hoping that the next thing is going to be good, and it's just not good at all. And during this time in believing Disney Star Wars will get better, all these mid shows are brainwashing me into thinking that they're actually decent and making me forget about how good Star Wars really is. This show is like an 8 to 9 out of 10 for Disney Star Wars, and it's like a 3 to 4 for Star Wars in general. And that's me being nice. Yes, it has some good moments, not everything in it is bad. The actor for Ezra is amazing, he's embodied Ezra very well. Baylan's skull, of course, is the standout of the show. R.I.P. Ray Stevenson, he did a great job, even though the character literally does nothing. Disney really think that just having a character that has the potential of being cool in the show that does nothing at all, just keeps leading us on and doesn't let us know anything about himself, will be good enough to satisfy fans is crazy because of Ray Stevenson's amazing performance. But when you look behind his performance, the character has nothing to it, and you can say that about many other characters in this show, considering all of the ones we know and love from Rebels and Clone Wars are just a shell of themselves. They are nothing like the characters that we all love. Even though the Ezra actor does a great performance, like I said, the writing once again holds the character back and has him one-dimensional in every situation. He has the same emotion for every situation. When he's fighting for his life, he's happy making jokes. In Rebels, Ezra was very jokey and light-hearted, but was also very serious when the situation calls for serious, but yet they just take one little part of his character and make it his whole personality. And to be honest, you can say this about every character in the show. At no point is there any tension, and the lack of emotion on the character's face proves it. For some reason, 99% of the time, no character has any sense of stress on their face or in their body language or even in their words. Ahsoka has like half a smile on the whole show, and when she's not, she's just straight faced in every situation, and for some reason she seems the happiest and the most carefree in the most deadly situations. At no point is there any stress. All the characters are just cruising through the story like nothing's going on. It's so weird. As soon as you see Ezra after all that's happened to him, it's almost like he doesn't even realize that he's in a new galaxy and that everything in the past actually happened. It's like he went away on a 2-day holiday, and when Sabine turns up there, it's like seeing a friend at that same spot that you're at. Oh well, funny seeing you here. I'm just chilling here with my shell people. I'm as happy as ever. I have no worries. It's not like I've been away for 8 years after saving the galaxy. And from that point on, he just continues to be smiley and jokey. And this part that I'm about to say is insane, but if you actually take the time to think about it, which is only about like 3 seconds, you'd realize how true it is and how crazy it is that it's true. Take the main character of the show out of the story and everything that happened would still happen. Everything would be the same.
What?
Ahsoka does nothing of meaning in this show. She's just there. Sabine makes all the terrible decisions to make the story happen. She's basically the main character of this show. Ahsoka is just along for the ride. She is just there to be that powerful character that can win any fight and help get any other character out of the stupid situation that they're in when they are too lazy to come up with a really creative idea for a character to get out of a situation. Ahsoka is that scapegoat, and actually that's not her only use. She's also in this show just to bring Anakin into it, to hit the remaining fans with nostalgia, and man does it work. When you watch the reactions for this episode, if you watch reaction videos for when Anakin turns up in the show, every time people react like they haven't seen him in 20 years, and it's the fakest thing ever. I love the prequels. Anakin is one of the greatest characters of all time, and I myself love seeing him back, but I do not understand why people have the same reaction after the 3rd time seeing him. Just stand there and say nothing, just turn up in the most meaningless scenes and do not benefit the story whatsoever, and then they treat it like it's a 10 out of 10 episode every time. It's like they've been desperately waiting for something to latch onto. There is never any weight to a scene where Anakin is in this show that would make you start tearing up and crying, apart from the fact that you're getting reminded of good Star Wars, which of course Hayden Christensen and Anakin Skywalker were in. That is the only reason why anyone should cry seeing Hayden Christensen, because whilst you're watching this absolute dog water show, you get hit with a reminder that there is still good Star Wars movies out there that you can go back to, and seeing Hayden Christensen is that reminder.
Sugar, honey, iced tea.
That Clone Wars flashback episode, full of cameos of characters we love just appearing and disappearing, was the most lazy way to try and get fans to say it was a 10 out of 10 episode, even though it was a waste of an episode. There was nothing to it. It just showed us characters and a timeline that we have good memories with, and took precious minutes out of this season that needed an extra episode to at least explain something that goes on in it, to give some context to Baylan and his motivation and his character as a whole, or maybe allow Sabine to deal with the consequences of making the worst decision ever, put the galaxy at risk, or maybe just gift this time to the characters that really need some emotion to be likable and interesting. No casual watcher or former Star Wars fan that has built up enough free time to give Disney Star Wars one more chance is going to be drawn into a show where the main character is so boring, one-dimensional, and is somehow the least interesting character of the whole show, even though this shell of a character couldn't save this show even if they were more interesting and similar to their previous appearance.
You don't say!
But yeah, I don't want to make this video too long. There's a lot more I can say, there's a lot that I've missed out, but I'll go over it in future videos. But in conclusion, the Ahsoka Show was meant to be the last hope to revive Star Wars, and in the end, it didn't even come close.